guys, my name is Alexandra. I'm a customer success executive and the host of Customer Success Therapy podcast, the podcast that goes beyond framework and strategies, where we uncover some uncomfortable topics about the customer success, such as churn, cross-collaboration with other departments, economical shift that is happening right now, and many, many more. So, welcome to the Customer Success Therapy podcast, the place where we listen and don't judge. Welcome back to Customer Success Therapy podcast. I'm Alexandra, and today I'm sitting with someone I genuinely love working with. We have worked with Denny previously on the series of webinar with Flowla and River Consultancy Group. So welcome, please, Denny, who is currently the Chief Customer Officer at River Consultancy Group. Denny, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Alexandra. It's good to be back. Good to be on a call with you again. It was such a great series we got to do with CS Connect and Flowla. So I'm really happy to just keep the conversation going.
I agree. And I think that we can skip this polished LinkedIn version about you part. Actually, I think that you one of the people who has a very unique perspective in customer success. And what I like that you gave very useful tips how you can survive in customer success right now in AI era. So we will add his LinkedIn profile right below. What's one thing that you're currently obsessing over, but you haven't figured out it yet?
Oh, it's hard. But I think one of the things I'm looking at right now in the age of AI that we live
Of
in,
course.
is how do we shift customer success? How do I do it? How do companies actually make it something that earns revenue? There's so much to figure out in there. But I think for so long in SaaS, we missed the mark on what customer success was capable of. I think
I agree.
we if you've been doing this as long as some of us, customer success started as this kind of sunshine and rainbows idea of make customers happy and make sure they're just enjoying what they purchased, and then real life kind of came in and kicked the shit out of us a bit, and it was actually no. We're here to protect revenue. We're here to grow revenue. We're here to become the source of consistency and the one really keeping essential relationships alive between the product and the customers and all those things. And now all of a sudden AI's here, and there are companies saying, AI can do customer support jobs, it can do customer success work, it can do account management work. And then companies are building AI tools and they're saying, hey, go make sure our customers are successful with AI. And then you say to that company, okay, well, what is success look like for us, for our customers? And no one knows. How do you figure out retention, what that looks like in that space? How do you figure out what growth looks like in that space? Everyone selling AI tooling is trying to figure out, and everyone using AI is trying to figure it out. So I think we're all on the learning curve together.
I like that most of the people would go into very, I would say, gentle part with this question and just tell, I can't figure out, I don't know, how to do the pancakes or something that is slightly professional. And you are going straight to the messy part that is actually, I think, on the mind not only of the customer success people, but on the mind of CEOs and CROs. And you've mentioned one great thing that I would like to stick to. You said that now, the past years, the customer success is actually doing what it needs to do. Grow the revenue, protect the revenue. And I have a question. Why do you think, for example, I've checked your profile, you have started working in customer success, I think since 2015, if I'm right. And why we didn't start back then with the right definition of customer success? Why do you think this was happening? Do you think it's because everyone was start obsessing with software as a service and they didn't have time to figure out what's customer success? Or are there any other reasons that are coming to your mind? Because you're right that we didn't work as we need to work. We didn't protect revenues. Actually, I think we were doing all at the same time, protecting revenues, doing the customer support, onboarding, everything. So why do you think this has happened back then?
Oh, it's a very good question. At the end of the day, customer success, just like support or services, sales, marketing, like we are functions paid for by a company, right? Like I know sometimes in CS and post sales, we really like to think of ourselves as the one on the customer side of the journey, the post sales, all these things.
Yes.
End of the day, if companies don't make money, they don't employ people. And so if you trace back and you ask that question is what war we therefore what created this, and you look back, yeah, Salesforce and Microsoft were some of the earliest to really adopt this term customer success. uh, I'm not going to say they didn't get it right. I'm going to say it probably is something that's evolved a lot more over the time as businesses grew. I mean, the birth of SaaS and the birth of customer success is a common function. Very much, we're on the same. Before SaaS, you sold CD-ROMs. You sold,
Yeah.
you sold hard drives with your software on it, and you said, "Go install this on every computer, and if there's a problem, here's the phone number to call support." All of a sudden, when we moved from that to this more online, interactive, back and forth model, people started saying, "Well, I want to know how to use this tool more. I want to grow this tool." There wasn't much need for somebody to come in and make you successful. You either used the tools or you didn't. Now we've developed a software for everything, and that everything has to answer whatever your thing is. So yeah, I think the early on failure was this idea that customer success was about just make the customer happy. When people are spending six figures or more on a software product, they want to, damn well know they're going to be successful with it, or they're going to
Yeah.
they're going to fly out the door as quick as they can, because no one really likes being the person responsible for €100,000 mistake. White glove customer success has nothing to do with making people happy. I always joke when I do trainings on kind of revenue enablement for post sales, and we're talking about customer sentiment, and kind of the old model of CSAT and NPS. And I say, does anybody have a customer who seems very unhappy all the time, but renews year after year? And I always get a handful of, hands that go up in the room, and I go, "Oh, great, you work with the German customers," because you talk to a German customer, and there's always something wrong, and always something
Yes.
that they want to share something, but that's just a cultural thing. Their happiness has nothing to do with how successful they are on a product. But then you flip that script, you talk to the Americans, and it's all sunshine and rainbows until the moment they churn. And so happy customers churn, upset customers stick around for years. We learned in the early days that what keeps a customer there is success. And that's where customer success claimed its footing in the enterprise space. Now, fast forward, I think a decade or so, maybe 2015, 2016, 2017. It's established, it's there, but it's expensive. You can't hire a CSM for every 4 to 5 customers and be profitable as a business. And that's when I think we almost killed CS, because everything became, how much can CS scale? But there was no real good roadmap for what that looked like. That's actually why I initially left customer success about 5 years ago now, I think. Went on to start River and start focusing on revenue, because I said, this is wrong. My last role as head of CS, I was doing really great and incredibly successful. And then they hired, in my opinion, a really foolish chief customer officer. Me and my now partner, former boss James, were showing growth all across the board, across all of the international accounts. And then they came in and said, "This is how we do it in the US. You're going to adopt to this. I want you to assign these dedicated CSMs to enterprise accounts that were determined by a sales team." And I'm like, "You want to see a dedicated CSM for an account that's, a few hundred licenses, but you won't give me one for one that's 20,000?" It was foolish, and it was stupid. And so that's when I decided to get out. And then what's that quote? I think it was Godfather. Every time I try to get out, they pull me right back in. And that's because I think, it only took a couple years when all of a sudden, I said, "That's it. I'm getting out. I'm going into the revenue game." And all of a sudden, the conversation everywhere was, "Oh, well, CS should be in revenue." And so this is really, I think, as recent as 2022. I started having conversations saying, "Yeah, actually, I think customers trust a CSM a lot more to talk to them about what they need and what they don't need than the salesperson they haven't seen since they signed the contract. I think if CS can guide a customer towards solutions that make the most sense, they have the best ability to upsell that. And I think you and I talked about this at one point when I started having that conversation and posting these things on LinkedIn. I was getting hate mail. I was getting, "You've betrayed customer success.
Oh
How
my
dare
God.
you? CS should never be revenue, quota carrying, revenue focused. You're just trying to turn it into a Trojan horse and you're just a salesperson in disguise. And, go back to the used car lot, you dirty snake," all sorts of things. And, and I just kind of, took it and said, "No, I think this is right." And in fact, I said, not only do I think CS should be involved in the revenue journey of a customer, I think we should be leading it. And that, again, 4 or 5 years ago was a ridiculous statement to most people. And now all of a sudden it's, how do we make CS revenue focused? All these questions have become the day to day of our business. I don't think everyone's got the answer. And then, as we just talked about, AI came in and kind of threw another wrecking ball into trying to figure out all those answers. But that's kind of what I do now is I go in and I talk to companies and I say, most of your value sits on the post sales side of the spectrum. It's the customers you keep, it's the customers that tell you what success looks like, it's the
Yes.
customers that tell you what growth opportunities look like. You need to figure out how to put that into your sales and marketing, and you need to figure out how to handle the customer journey across that whole thing. Because if you're doing a really great job of sales, but a really terrible job of implementation and handover and onboarding, you're never going to get that data you need here to do it over here and start that cycle over again. But if you do something right, if you experiment and keep trying and keep pushing, you have the chance to do huge, huge chunks of growth for your business and for the customers that you care about, which is why you got into CS in the first place. So, yeah, I don't know. Very long then till
Very
now
long
of where
speech.
CS is at. But I very much love this topic because I think we're in a place to do incredible stuff in customer success that we haven't been able to in the previous 20 plus years of its history.
Agree with you. Please hold that thought for a second. Let's get back to actually you. When I was preparing to this episode, of course, I checked your profile and I didn't know that you were actually a guest lecturer. And that's a very unusual CS career path for many of us. And can you please let us know? Because I know that there is a lot of people who are worried that they don't have this, I would say, direct experience working with customers. How did it happen that you have transitions from the universities to actually doing customer success?
Yeah, yeah. So, wow, you deep Googled or deep LinkedIn. Yeah. So before, customer success was actually a second career for me. I didn't bother to shave this week, which is why the gray beard is showing more. And I can say I had a second. This is a second career, but I originally started in the nonprofit sector and in the education sector, and I worked with teenagers and at-risk teenagers and young adults, and then I guest lectured in universities teaching other social workers and things like that. And I thought that's what I was going to do. It was very rewarding work, but after about 10 years of it, my bank account was still pretty much at zero, and all the smiling faces in the world didn't pay the bills. And that's when I said, okay, I need to maybe pivot to a career that will last in the long term. And I still remember the very first job I got in customer success was around a decade ago, a little over now, I think, 11, 12 years. And when I was in the interview process, they kind of asked the same question. They said, well, we like your personality. We appreciate that you've got a bit of maturity. You've done some very good social work stuff. What makes you a good fit for this? And I just kind of smiled. I said, well, I think my special skill is herding cats. And, you know, I said, it takes a lot to manage, in the field I was in, this ability to handle all sorts of things coming at you from all sorts of different directions, and then get
Yes.
them moving in that same direction. And so we laughed about it. They said that's the best way we've ever heard. At this time, CS was still kind of the minor term in the job description. It was a um, customer success project manager, I think, was my original first term. And they said, well, that's project management, all these different things. And they said, and the customer success side is really, keeping them going on the path you want. So I would say if you're looking at getting into this field, the questions that matter if you're trying to decide is, am I comfortable talking to people? Am I comfortable actually directing people. That's not something I know some people who are brilliant with software, brilliant with products, but if you say, okay, now can you tell this room of, 10 potential people where they're supposed to go? That sounds like their worst nightmare. I've, been an individual contributor all the way up to global director level head of international head of, and so I've hired, gosh, I've lost track, well over 50 CSMs in my career, um, directly, and then I've hired managers of CS and things like that. Soft skills matter 110% more than if you happen to have worked with a tool, or if you have experience, or if you got a CS certification. If you can come into that meeting and show me how you work with people and how you communicate and how you think thoughtfully, do discovery, ask the right questions, soft skills, things that don't have anything to do with our product or our tooling. If you show me that first, you are immediately at the top of the candidate stack. And I think that's a skill our next generation needs to get really comfortable with, is being on camera, talking and sharing.
Like what you have said. And I am thinking that actually your skill working with teenagers probably have helped you a lot with working with demanding customers, because I see the
Oh,
direct correlation with this.
no one will tell you you're doing a bad job faster than a teenager,
Of course.
which was an incredibly helpful skill to learn and pick up and read on. But yeah, the amount of times I've been able to draw parallels between, I've worked with CEOs and CROs from Fortune Global 500 companies, and the amount of times I went back and drew on the wisdom of, hey, how did that room full of teenagers react to this? And I doubt many of them would like to be directly compared to a teenager. But honestly, the thing teens teach you is, they have wants, they have needs, everything's urgent, everything's fighting for their attention. And if you can navigate that skill, you're great in a boardroom. And I
Yes, I
don't think,
agree.
I think it's a soft skill, but I also think that can be a learned skill and a perfected skill. So if you're getting into CS, that's definitely something I would encourage people to do, is just find an opportunity. Tell me where I'm boring. Tell me where I suck. Tell me where you don't care about what I'm sharing, because that's the type of stuff that will help you grow in your career.
Yes, I agree. I actually, for those who are listening, I actually have also my useful tip how to develop
Hmm.
the social skills. And I've also advised this to my early direct reports. Is one thing that you can do is start actually speaking to people that you don't know. So, for example, if you're going to the post office, talk to the post mail officer. If you're going to the coffee shop, talk to barista. Start the
Hmm.
conversation first. And I think that that when you're talking to people who you don't know, even the small talk, you actually become more used to it, and it's very easy then to talk to customers first.
Actually, this goes a little bit back to what I try to teach people in the scaled CS space to do. But CSMs in general, I always say, and no one probably wants to find out they were this, but start with your least relevant customers when you're learning your CS skills. Everybody wants to go in and say, oh, I'm going to deal with the biggest customers and tackle this challenge and things like that. And I don't care if it's mid market or enterprise or anywhere in between. If you go, well, our most important account is here, probably don't test out your new strategies or your new deck or your
Of
new
course.
pitches, like find that customer where you go, what have I got to lose? And work on them. But yeah, if you're getting into CS, yeah, start chatting up that local barista, like, and what's the worst case scenario? You're friendly to a stranger, you make a friend. I always do that. So that's a great tip. It's my favorite quote. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said it. And it's, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so I think if you can find a really good way to show people that you care conversationally, whether that's your tone, your body language, using kind of tactical empathy as you listen to them. That's a phenomenal way into being a successful CSM. If you can do that with a stranger on the street, especially, no too strong of stereotypes here, but I have a lot of friends from Eastern European countries. If you can get a
Yes.
stranger on the street in Eastern Europe, Czechia, Romania, Ukraine, Poland, they can all of a sudden start talking to you. You obviously have some skills, because,
Yes.
I show up there, chatty American Westerner, and I just get dead looks like, why? Who is this terrifying person trying to talk to me? So great place to hone your skills. I
I
would
would
say is
like to
Eastern countries.
defend Romania because I think because Romania is more southern part and it's Balkan, they are very chatty. But
They can
Poland,
be, yeah.
you're right. You're
Oh
right,
yeah.
1000%. Okay, let's back to customer success. And Danny likes the statement that customer success is not a revenue team component, but a driver. Danny, can you please defend this statement to someone who is actually against it? Probably some, I don't know, don't want to offend anyone, but the CRO in their middle ages that probably came from the sales side. And
Mhm.
usually CROs and CFOs are always telling us that customer success is a cost center. So how you can
Mhm.
defend your statement in front of these people?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. It's something I try to share with anybody who's willing to listen because I think this is a very common scenario, right? Most CROs came from a sales background, so they AE, MD for a region, et cetera, worked their way up, SVP of sales, eventually CRO, but full background sales. Then I would say the remain 10%, probably more like 12 to 13% were CMOs, chief marketing, or came from a chief marketing officer role or head of marketing, VP of marketing into CRO because they also generate revenue and pipeline and all that. So they could speak some of the language. And then I would say, I think out of the 60 I interviewed, two came from a customer success background. So of course they don't get it. And so what I would challenge and what I do challenge CS people, especially if you're looking to, I don't want to say justify your existence, but if you're having that cost center versus revenue driver conversation, you need to speak their language. And that is a language of metrics, and that is a language of things that affect, growth and bottom line. So if you're in CS and you don't know what your company's customer acquisition cost is, or if you don't know time to value for your average customer, if you can't talk about those different metrics across different segments, if you can't speak to how the work you're doing impacts, you know, however you measure it, NRR, MRR, GRR, ARR, whatever terms your company uses, like of course you're a cost center. 3 years ago, again with the shift to revenue, there was a mass firing of chief customer officers. The CCO role greatly reduced in the United States, and it was either entirely abandoned or replaced by CRO, just took customer success org in under them. And when people ask me why, I go, well, imagine you're sitting at an executive table and the CEO or chairman or whoever, representing the investors, and you're getting ready to do your budget for the year, and they say, "Okay, tell me how you're going to help us grow in the next year." And your VP of sales or you know chief sales officer, chief commercial officer, whoever, they come in and they start talking about, well, we're gonna build into this new region, and this is our TAM in that region, and this is how we're gonna hit them. I need to hire 5 more salespeople to do it, but I'm gonna go in and get some experienced people. We're gonna try and poach from this competitor. Blah blah blah. They're talking money, they're talking pipeline, they're talking cost, they're putting all the numbers on the table. Then you go to your marketing side, VP of marketing, CMO, whoever, and they say, well, to achieve the growth goals that we have set, for next year, our big, hairy, audacious goals, we think, we probably need to be driving X more leads in pipeline. So here's the campaign. We're going to go out and be at these events. We're going to, run these success stories. We're going to, do these kind of competitor win back stories, et cetera, et cetera. They come in with their plan, and how much is it going to cost us this much to run these campaigns, this much to buy this many LinkedIn ads. I'm going to probably have to
Yeah.
hire 2 more marketing people, but they put all the numbers on the table. And then you get to this, the product person. How are we going to grow? Well, we're going to invest in R&D and this and that. We're going to bring in AI tooling. All you can see it across the board. Then you're up as the CCO, and they say, okay, how are you going to grow the business? And if you suddenly say, well, our NPS score is currently this, and we're going to try and increase it to this, but to do that, I need more headcount to have more customer focus. Who gives a shit? Pardon my French on that one, but like if I'm somebody who's responsible for a company, for a business, And what you're trying to sell me is customer sentiment, customer health scores. And if they didn't eat you alive at that statement and think you're a cost center, if all of a sudden you're then asking for potentially 4, 5, 10 more CSMs, whatever your number is, and that carries $250,000 or more in salary, like, you're a cost center. If you can't tell me how the work you do makes me money, you're a cost center. I think one of the first sessions we did together in our webinar series, we talked about the metrics that matter.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
it's it's online, it's free. You can go get it, I believe, from CS Connect. And you can always shoot me a message and say, hey, Denny, what are the metrics that matter? I'm happy to send you those 3 slides, because at the end of the day, that's the language every CS leader and ultimately every CS IC needs to be able to speak. Impact customer acquisition cost. But if you want to stop being a cost center, you need to start being a driver.
I have a follow-up question, and let's
Sure.
keep it short. What can you advise to chief customer officers who has the opposite situation, is where they know that they need to own revenue and they want, but the CEO is like, no, you need to care about customer relationships. Like, revenue is for sales. What to
Mhm.
do with this?
Yeah, honest answer, exact same advice. I don't know a single CEO, CRO, or board who doesn't want to make money. Like, the pressures they're under, the jobs they face. I talk to them weekly, if not daily. They want to make money. They need to make money. They need to
Yes.
keep growing. So, exact same thing. Find the metrics that matter and start talking about how your team can do it. And what's even better is if you can then say, and we're making customers happy while we do this. You've just given them, their cake, and they can eat it too. So, yeah, no change, honestly, in that.
Amazing advice. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get back to actually what you're doing now. You're the Chief Customer Officer at River Consultancy Group, and you have mentioned that your partner, James, was your previous boss. Can you please let us know who reached out to whom first with the idea to establish River Consultancy Group?
Oh, that was 100% James. At the time we were leaving, I'd already been offered another role. I was quite happy to take it. I was completely content with that. But when James left, he had decided he wanted to go into consulting, and initially it was just customer success consulting. And he's a dear friend. I just wanted to see him succeed, so I kind of just was his sounding board for what he was doing and what he was trying, and trying to help him get referrals. And as the business grew, he was doing a lot of kind of individual mentoring and coaching, and it was more work than he could handle. And so he asked me to come in initially to help with some of that load. And then right about the time I was getting into that, he accepted a fractional CCO role and didn't want the company to die. And it was really right about the same time I was getting fired up about the future of SaaS and customer success and revenue, and how those things tied together. So right about the time he stepped into his fractional role, I started building out our kind of, I don't know, flagship program, the Revenue Strategy Lab, which is designed to help CS sales, marketing, and product kind of all get on the same page and grow companies. So yeah, that was when he asked me to kind of come in and become his partner officially. And now we're about 2 years into it. We're actually rebranding, relaunching with all of our programs that we're doing in about a month's time. Yeah, depending on when this webinar comes out, check the website. If it's black and gold, it's the old stuff and don't pay any attention. If it's cool neon colors and blues and greens, that means we're updated, and dig in and see what we're up to.
Can you please tell our listeners, obviously, the pros and cons of having your own thing? Because I think that, do you remember? I think we all had this boom when we had a lot of influencers and Instagram creators, and then also that's happened in our industry, that everyone's starting to have their own, but we know that there are pros and cons in everything. Can you please
Mhm.
share with our listeners, in your mind, what's your pros and cons of having your own thing and building the business?
The pros are, I have my own time. I get to choose my own direction. I get to work with who I want for the most part, and I get to build something I deeply, deeply care about. And those are probably the cons too. It's on my own time. Some weeks
Yes.
that's some weeks that's a 20-hour commitment. Some weeks that's an 80-hour commitment. It's something I care deeply about, which means I will lay up at night thinking about something that I need to do for one of my customers instead of just going to sleep because I clocked out, 7 hours ago. Sometimes I am doing really, really well and get to plan a fun workation in the south of France. And other times I am sitting at my desk with the heat turned down a little colder and a blanket wrapped around me eating cup of noodles because you got to make ends meet for that month. So it's a very tough job. I think yes, our industry got flooded with influencers. There's still quite a few of them out there, some great, some just repeating what they see. But I think ultimately customer success or consultant, they're both very tough jobs, and you have to care deeply about what you're doing to succeed at it.
So my question, the next one, is we're currently in the April of 2026. Where do you think Denny will be in April 2027? What are you excited will come to you in the next year?
Yeah, I'm hoping this bet on um, revenue that I've been building for a few years pays off. I kind of have said repeatedly, I don't want to, I don't want to go out and help Google and Meta and all the tech giants of today. I want to hopefully be in the situation to help the next one. I want to find those SaaS scale ups and startups and founders who maybe have brilliant visionary ideas, learn how to get the revenue right because yeah, something that frustrates me to no end is the constant news stream around mass layoffs and executives being told what to do by Wall Street investors who couldn't care less about the product or the customers or the people that work for these companies. So I want to try and get in and help companies build their revenue engines right from the get-go so they never have to bow to that type of authority. I want to see the next billion-dollar company built on values like putting their customers first and putting their people first and still make boatloads of money and not have to say, "Oh no, our stock prices," because they couldn't care less because they built it right and they know it'll survive. So that's if I get to start doing that more and more in the next 12 months, then you're going to see a very happy Denny in April 2027.
Oh, that's so amazing. And I agree with you. We definitely need some new names out there because everyone knows about Meta and Google. And in customer success and in SaaS, we probably need some new companies and new leaders. And I hope that you will find those and you will bring their names out to the public. My last question for this would be what one thing you wish more people from customer success say out loud that probably a lot of don't say, or they think it could cost them a job or, I don't know, public reputation or whatever?
Mhm. The number one thing I wish more CS people said is no.
Oh, that's such an interesting thing. Why?
So the idea that the customer is always right is a terrible idea. There's a lot of customers who ask for things all the time, and CS has been told make them happy for so long that we get used to saying yes. I've lost count of how many instances I can think of where I wish I would have said no to a customer instead of yes. Not no, just no and hit the hang up button on the Zoom call, but no, that's not a good idea. Or no, that's not how I'd use the tool. Or no, I don't think that's what we should be measuring. It takes a lot of care to usually say no to somebody that you care about. And if you say no at the right time to the right person in the right situation, you do immense relationship building. And no isn't always a negative either. No is a change of direction. No is a pause to reconsider. And when you're afraid to say it to the customer and you're afraid to say it internally, then all of a sudden you take on more work than you can handle, or you take on responsibilities that shouldn't be yours. You become the support person or the services person or the account person plus your day job. And all those little yeses add up to detrimental effects to you, your customers, the business. So yeah, if there's one thing I can say is start saying no more.
Okay. So those who are listening to our podcast, we are saying no to the right people, right customers, and we are adding something after no. And we are not sending no just with an add zone sent from iPhone. That's definitely a bad
Yes,
decision.
yes, yes. Context matters. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so Denny, before we wrap up our episode, you have mentioned that River Consultancy Group is doing some rebranding and also have something to offer to the customers. So please let us know what people should expect from the River Consultancy Group.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very much doing everything we do at River going forward is about growth and about revenue. So as I mentioned, we have kind of our flagship stuff, which is the Revenue Strategy Lab, which is where we go in and work with companies from beginning to end across usually 2 to 3 months or more, depending on their size. We do fractional CCO and CRO work in that same space. We've also built something really cool that we call our auditing system. So what we call the SaaS growth audits, which is something where basically we just sit and listen and ask a lot of questions that we see relating to different growth levers. And then my favorite is trainings. And so we have revenue enablement for post sales team, a series of workshops where we want to run it, for the individual contributors on the ground, whether they're coming to us as one person from a company or one person from sales, one from CS, and one from marketing who want to learn to work together and make changes. So we're hoping to get some of those out. Right now, we're doing them directly with companies who bring us in for the training, but I'm hoping to make both of those trainings available either as kind of a paid webinar series or workshop series so that people from any company, if you have the training budget, you can come in and join us.
That's very exciting. And for those who are listening to Customer Success Therapy podcast, if you would like to become the next $1 billion SaaS company, please reach out to Denny and River Consultancy Group. They will help you with this definitely.
That's a bold guarantee, but we'll do our best.
So Denny, thank you very much. This was edgy like I wanted, and it was real, I think, for our listeners. I love working with you and whoever listening to the Customer Success Therapy podcast. I'll see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe to Denny and River Consultancy Group. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Thank you.